is 133 days to the 2023 presidential election, with the commencement of campaigns for the poll. Political parties, their candidates and supporters have just 131 days to convince 95 million voters spread across the country for their support. Hello and welcome to Standpoint. I am Precious Amayu. Now, for the second time in a week, a meeting between the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, governors of the party, members of the party's National Working Committee, and the Presidential Campaign Council held in Abuja on Friday. The meeting was convened to pick a date for the inauguration of the Presidential Campaign Council and kick off campaigns, but it appears that was not achieved as there is still no official date for the event. A national chairman of the party, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, was absent at the meeting. That also raised concerns that all may not be well at the moment. Senator Adamu had earlier expressed dissatisfaction with the list of names that made the Presidential Campaign Council. But the spokesperson of the council, Mr. Festus Keyamo, says the delay of campaign flag-off is due to the busy schedule of President Muhammadu Buhari, who, as the chairman of the campaign council, must be present. He assured Nigerians that all the organs of the party were united and working in unison towards one purpose, adding also that Bola Tinubu had already presented a draft manifesto to the party, which has been approved and only needs the president's nod. And joining me now from our Abuja studio is the Director of Strategic Communications, APC Presidential Campaign Council, Dele Alake. Good to have you join us.
Hello and good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Let me start by asking you, when you talk about, or when people talk about Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the very first thing, or one of the very first things that people say is his ability to identify talent, and they point to his time as governor of Lagos and those who he was surrounded by, and who they are now in their states, and some of them even in this particular administration. And so that leaves a lot of question. Others would then say, and this is a question I'm posing to you, if he has this kind of people surrounding him, why then is he running?
First of all, let me correct the intro, my designation which you gave. I was the Director of Strategic Communications, but after the reconstitution of the Campaign Council, I'm now the advisor, and there are and there are others, Dele Alade and others who are in the Strategic Communications Directorate, and other directors in the Media, Communications, and Public Affairs, directorates. So that's that. I'm advisor. Now, to your question, you say if Bola Tinubu has mentored leaders and brilliant people and technocrats and professionals, why is he running? Only the deep can call to the deep. What you have said actually eloquently justifies the need for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to run for the presidency of this country. If a man has got that presence of mind and that depth of intellectualism and demonstrable capacity for envisioning policies, programs, and for the knowledge, the methodology to effect and execute these envisioned policies and programs, and also having the capacity for courage needed to push those policies into eventual realities. What other qualifications do you need for a progressive presidential material? He's got it all. The fact that as one of his attributes, one of his merits, is the capacity and ability to spot talents, manage them, develop them into potential leaders. So why don't you then go for that source of the fountain of knowledge that he is. He's established himself as a fountain of knowledge, giving free rein to other brilliant people to blossom, to flourish. So if you want maximum performance and you want to maximize your mileage of achievements as a nation, that is the type of person that you need to drive the country, to move the country from its present state onto higher grounds. And I've always said, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is coming to consolidate on whatever the achievements that are on ground, and then move ahead to resolve whatever challenges that are left, that are remaining, and move the country forward. And he has demonstrated all of this eloquently in Lagos. We can never get tired of mentioning that background, that track record, the antecedents.
I will get to those achievements,
which no other contestant in this present dispensation can display.
And I will give you time to talk about those achievements in just a moment. But I know you mentioned, just to apologize for addressing you as Director of Strategic Communications. You said you no longer occupy that office. But I just want to address you properly and appropriately going forward. You are now an advisor to the Presidential Campaign Council. I just want to be sure. All right, so I see you're nodding. Okay, so, all right. You mentioned earlier the issue of being able to mentor talent, and again, people say, look, the issue, and that's where the issue of age seemed to come up, and people say, look, why not just push a younger candidate that perhaps for his age he should have retired by now and just continue to be what people call him a kingmaker and not become the king himself.
Well, you see, when you want to call a dog a bad name to hang it, you look for all kinds of excuses, right? Now, age, in terms of leadership, is really neither here nor there. Age is not a determinant. It's not a sole determinant
of performance, of achievement at all. What are we talking about? The greatest democracy in the world, the most advanced country in the world today, debatably, is the United States of America.
Don't you know the age of the president, the current president of America, or the last president of America? So it is not the age. There are so many elderly people who can perform and who have performed even better than the so-called youths. And in any case, let us come down to brass tacks. In the political history of our country, Nigeria, go and do a content analysis of the political development of Nigeria and study the various ages of our leaders across all levels, either gubernatorial or presidential or head of state, whether military or civilian. In fact, we've had more of the youthful age bracket of leadership in our over 60 years or 62 years of nationhood. And where has that gotten Nigeria? I can start mentioning examples, but I will just, not to waste so much time. You can do the research as a journalist and go and look at the age, even in this current dispensation, since 1999. Go and look at the ages of the various governors that we've had and look at the performance, the record of performance, and see where their states are and where collectively the nation is. It is not the age per se. It is what is embedded in your brain, in the skull. It's your capacity to envision. It's your capacity for knowledge. And it's your capacity for courage. After all, in this country, we've had heads of state that were just a little over 30 years old as head of state. We've had governors that were in their 40s, early 40s, mid 40s, or early 50s. Go and look at their record of achievement and performance and compare it with some of the older generation who have the required experience, the selective exposure, the capacity, the knowledge to advance the cause of the society. So age, in short, age is not the sole determinant of it. In fact, you can be as young as in this our current dispensation, we have very many young leaders across board, both in the political and in the non-political sectors of the country. How far has that gotten
What about,
the nation?
You have talked so much about his age and say that age doesn't matter. But another issue that people are talking about is his health. How fit is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
I was asked this a while ago, and I said he is as fit as a fiddle. In fact, is more fit than some of your so-called young people. You see a man walking on the street, you can never know what illness or disease he harbors in his body. Looking at you, I cannot guess what you harbor. You cannot guess what I harbor. So, except your medical personnel. Now, I will tell you why I say he's fit as a fiddle. I have known Ashiwaju for over 30 years. Up till this morning, he has not changed his schedule. He works long hours every day. There's no sick man can sustain that kind of rigorous schedule for years, for decades, relentlessly, and still going at it. Now, let's come back to, some simple ocular proof examples. Recall, before the primaries were held, can you tell me any one of the aspirants then that traversed the length and breadth of Nigeria, rigorously campaigning, seeking for votes of delegates all over across the nation, as much as Bola Ahmed Tinubu? Whereas the propaganda of the naysayers or of the negativities or the negative pushers was that, oh, this man was ill, he wasn't fit, his health wasn't good. He kept going on the political hustings, crisscrossing, flying, driving all over the country.
You're right.
And those so-called healthy youths, younger elements, never went or traversed a quarter of this country.
Mr. Alake, you're absolutely right that he moved around
and
the country.
And you saw the results.
During the primaries. But he has missed very key events, only to be represented by his vice presidential running mate. And one of them is the signing of the peace accord. He also missed the NBA and the ICANN conferences. And that sort of raised, I would just call them, raised, just a minute to land, raised some sort of speculations that he has gone abroad to seek again medical attention. Just to restore the confidence of his supporters, will he participate in events going forward, especially the debates?
Look, let me tell you something. We need to put issues in perspective. The problem with us in Nigeria is that we are very quick to grapple with rumors. We revel in rumors, insinuations, innuendos, and we are quick to want to see the worst of our opponents or of the other person That's why all of this groundswell of, attention on him whenever he's not around for any particular event whatsoever. However, I also blame those of you who are purveyors of information, who are supposed to do research and efficiently inform the public. If you had done enough research prior to those events you claim he missed, you would discover that he went for further consultations. Now, you have to prioritize your operations. If you are gunning for a higher political office, you have to be strategic. The very first NBA conference you said he missed, the night before was when he had to jet out to go and meet Governor Wike and his team in London. And the pictures came. And you, the media, used the pictures of him in London, meeting with his team and Governor Wike's team, making consultations, looking for negotiations with a view to marching forward. That is the essence of politics. The game of politics is consensus building, is alignments and realignments. So he was pursuing a strategic alignment process. Are you telling me that he should leave that and come and attend the NBA conference? When the NBA was not going to influence Wike into aligning with him. And you and I know political pundits and those who are versed in political strategy, they know the significance and the importance of having to go after Wike. So he sent his deputy. And in any case, what did the organizers of the conference, what did they want? They wanted somebody, either the presidential candidate of APC or the vice presidential candidate of APC, to come and present the APC perspective to the conference. Not necessarily the man himself, if it was not convenient for him strategically. That's what happened. The pictures came and everything. Somebody asked me, one of your reporters too asked me at that time, and I directed him to the pictures in the papers of that very day, where it was explained what he was doing in London. So that was it. The second time,
and absolutely,
the signing of
TVC News, we
the
do our
signing
best
of the peace accord.
We do our best
to
report accurately.
I can
Mr.
tell
Alake.
you confidently that between Ashiwaju's team and Governor Wike's team, more than 3 meetings have been held. Now, when you are in the process of pursuing realignment and you want a particular group or caucus to come into your fold, you are not in the most
Alake,
solid position to dictate the date and time and venue of the meeting. You go after
Alake, we do our best
the
at TVC News to
person
ensure
you
that we
want
report
to bring into your fold. And if that person says, this is where I want to hold the meeting, this is the time and date I want to hold the meeting, you go along with it. If those meetings now clash or coincide with other meetings locally, then you send a representative. That's how it's done.
All right. I was telling earlier that we do our best at TVC News
if
report
future
accurately.
meetings do not clash with other strategic, politically strategic appointments elsewhere, I can assure you he will be there.
All right. So I was going to say that we do our best at TVC News to report accurately the whereabouts of presidential candidates. But when people like you come on, we also try to get information from you because you are close. You're close to the presidential candidates. All right, but let me ask you, because I was asking earlier if he was going to participate in the debates, because we know that we're going to have several presidential debates.
I have answered. I said going forward, if there is no politically strategic appointment clashing with any future meetings, he will be there. He will be at such meetings.
So let me ask you about what is also, a lot of people are also wondering if this is the line that the campaign might toll, in terms of the statement he made earlier about following up on President Buhari's legacy. And not every Nigerian remembers that legacy fondly. And they're wondering, is there going to be a breakaway from this legacy? Or because when you look at security challenges in the country, economic challenges in the country, people don't think that that's a legacy that one should follow through.
Now, again, this is why I say there is always a media mix-up of issues. And it's quite, as a practitioner myself, as a professional media person, I get worried because issues must be compartmentalized and not mixed up. Now, this man said he's going to consolidate, and I repeated it in my opening statements here too. He's going to consolidate on whatever achievements that are recorded on ground. And he's going to improve and resolve whatever challenges that remain on ground. Now, that is actually the focal point of any administration. Yes, I will be the first to concede the fact that we don't have 100% success in every sector of the country. And again, let me point it out, and confidently too, there is no nation where any government has succeeded 100% in all sectors of that society. It is a tall order. That is why they say government is a continuum. When you get there, you make your priorities, you do the best that you can in moving that country forward. Now, another government comes, even if it's an offshoot of your own, will also perform to its own utmost capacity and ability and to the very best, and move the country also several notches ahead. That is why till today, in the US, in the UK, in virtually every part of the developed world, you still have demonstrations, protests by the civil society on either one issue or the other. It may not be the security challenge that we have. It may not be that type, our own type of security challenge. But there are some other types of security challenges that they have. Like, for instance, in the US, we know what the gun violence issue is in the US today. It's a major, major security issue. Whereas US is one of the most technologically advanced societies in the world. So, in a nutshell, what we are saying is, yes, you can also not deny that this government has recorded some modest successes in certain areas, in the area of infrastructure, for instance. When you talk about infrastructure, the rail readily comes to mind. In the last 30 years or so, if you do a content analysis of the media or of the country itself in terms of developmental strides, you cannot point at any government previous that have recorded these phenomenal success in the rail transportation system. That's significant. There are so many roads and bridges that this government has constructed. But there is one thing that I also will concede. Bad news travels faster than good news. So it is not impossible that the bad news on security and all that, and the economy, inflation and all of that, because this constitutes very poignant bad news, have traveled far above the good news. But we cannot in good conscience deny the existence of those successes in those areas. At the same time, we also cannot in good conscience deny that there are still challenges to be surmounted, to be resolved. And that is the kernel of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's rhetoric, that he's going to consolidate on the achievements recorded in whatever areas, and then use his own capacity, which he has demonstrated in the past, his envisioning, his knowledge, his courage, to now resolve those remaining challenges of the nation and move the country forward. And there is no better candidate with the required experience and exposure to do that.
Thanks for staying with us. If you have been following Standpoint, you will know that we have been speaking to the different campaign teams of different political parties across the country as we inch closer to the presidential election next year. And today we're speaking with an advisor to the APC Presidential Campaign Council. He's Dele Alake. And we've been speaking about the presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Thank you for staying with us.
Pleasure.
All right, so when it comes to Ashiwaju Tinubu's achievements, his supporters are quick to reference his track record as the governor of Lagos State. And of course, that's one of the offices he has held where he managed a state. But there are also those who think that that achievement might be overstated, and that he's probably been arrogated a lot of achievements that had started way before he became governor. But you were an integral part of that administration. Talk to us about the reality of things.
Well, to actually put that issue in proper perspective, you would need to also tell me what you said, or give me an example of such policy or policies that have been arrogated to him, but that was started way before him. Because I don't know of any policy that has been that he has claimed, or that we have given credit to him for, that was started before him. I don't know of any. So you need to educate me, and then I'll be able to tell you whether that is correct or not. And I will back it up with facts and figures and empirical verification. Because I don't know of any. Again, if you can't come up with one, I will go back to my assertion that the media is always echoing insinuations, rumors, innuendos, without investigating before coming to the public. Now, interviews, ideally, interviews do not replace investigative journalism. I'm a journalist, trained journalist. And I've practiced both in the print, in the electronic, in the public sectors and everything. So I know what I'm talking about. If it is meet and proper for the media to be bombarded with insinuations, rumors, innuendos, but it is also the owner's responsibility of the media to investigate those things before re-echoing them in the public space. I do not know of any policy that has been arrogated to Ashiwaju falsely that was started before him. All the policies that we give him credit for were started by him. And even his successors continue to build on those policies, which is why Lagos today has risen from a 600 million naira IGR, internally generated revenue, per month, to what it is today as arguably the 5th largest economy in Africa. That is indisputable, and I'll tell you why. Because I was there And I keep saying, I wasn't told, I was part of his team that conceptualized, enunciated, executed, and monitored all of those policies. 600 million was what he inherited as a governor. Before him, the governor of the state, General Buba Marwa, is alive. He is the current chairman of the NDLA, the drug agency. Buba Marwa met the IGR of Lagos at 300 million naira a month. He increased it, and by the time he was leaving, the IGR was at 600. And Ashiwaju took over at that 600 point. And he started putting in place mechanisms. The very first thing he did is what is being copied all over the country today. He brought in technology into administration of the state. How? There were loopholes, financial leakages, revenues going into amorphous purses. And he said that was one of the fundamental reasons why the state revenue was that low. So he first had to plug those leakages with technology. He then brought in the Oracle system and introduced that into the payroll of the Lagos State Civil Service structure. Of course, human being, human nature is resistant to change. So the civil servants, the workers, resisted it because they had to do biometrics. And he insisted as the governor that he was not going back. That was the way to go. So at the end of the day, this biometrics was effected. And do you know what? It will shock you that the very first month of implementation of that technological development, 350 million, more than half of the IGR, was saved. What it meant was that 350 million every month was going down into various amorphous purses. That was the first step. The second step was to now, let me also, before I leave that point, because workers had to do personal, individual biometrics, those ghost workers that had been earning before, of course, you know, ghosts couldn't come to do biometrics. So we saw so many names on the salary bill or the wage bill that did not exist at all in reality. We found a Mr. Ekpe. We found a Madam Efficiency. We found Mr. Omoshetan Omolo on the payroll. We found a whole school, a high school, with full complement of staff, from principal to head teachers to non-teaching staff, on the payroll that never existed in reality. And so that started to build up the IGR of the state. The next thing he did, he now introduced a mechanism of catching, without increasing any tax, of catching those who are not in the tax net, broadening the tax net. And that was what brought the now famous Alpha Beta, which those who are envious, who never had the required mental capacity to dream up of such mechanism, very efficient mechanism of increasing revenue generation, started saying, oh, it's owned by Ashiwaju, oh, he's using his own private company to collect revenue for the state. Look, the medium is the message. Go and look at those who are saying so. Everywhere they have worked, what have been their own landmark achievements? and improvements on the societies that they have governed, because not some of them have governed before, but we'll get to all of that. So he brought that innovation, and then he started blazing trail. And you know what trail blazing means. It means initiating. Initiating. When you initiate something, it means it had never existed before. First of all, he started what has now become fashionable in Nigeria. Everybody, even local government chairmen, when they are elected now, they start a transition program. They form a transition council. Governors, even the presidency, and all of that. It was Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu that blazed that trail in Nigeria. He was the first to start it. And why did he start it? He said he wanted to bring in professionals. And those professionals, many of them are still alive today in various walks of life. He brought in experts from the health sector, from the economic sector, from the private sector, from the legal, the judiciary, from the media. I was there as a member representing the media in that transition council. And so this transition council, in effect now, constituted 23 transition subcommittees spanning all sectors of administration, health, education, physical infrastructure, engineering, finance, all the gamut of administration. And all of this produced
if you allow me
point
jump in, we have just a few minutes left.
Which is still the philosophical background to the development trajectory of Lagos till today.
All right, so how does this achievement, how does this play into a larger society like Nigeria, which is multi-ethnic, it is multi-religious, with about 36 independent states. So how does this play into that larger society?
Thank you very much for that question. Now, first of all, Lagos, we all agree, is a melting point of Nigeria. There is hardly any area in this country that is not represented in Lagos. I don't want to go as far as saying any family, but most families have at least one single, if not more, representative in Lagos. Lagos is the most heterogeneous society in Lagos. It inhabits everybody across ethnic divide, across religious divide, across economic class or creed. So in essence, Lagos is Nigeria in microcosm. So if you are able to now, and in fact, Lagos is even more than that. Across the West African sub-region, you have people streaming in and out of Lagos on a daily basis. And you have population of people from other countries across the west coast of Nigeria domiciled in Lagos. You can research all of these things. They are not in the clouds. These are verifiable facts. Now, given this background, if a man has got the capacity to manage such a melting pot and raise it to a level that it now becomes one of the largest economies in Africa, tell me, can you imagine what such a person would do with the larger canvas of Nigeria? It just simply means using the same principles of envisioning long-term policies and amassing the methodology, which is the knowledge of executing such policies, and then, of course, exuding the required courage, the will, to push those policies into eventual reality. It's the principles that are important. Whether you have the largest concentration of people or in fact, the diversity of Nigeria is an asset to anybody who has the acumen, the managerial acumen, the administrative ability to harness our human and natural resources. That diversity is an asset. We are not as diverse as some other countries, which is why we have opted for a federal system of government. And if we actually practice the federal system of government genuinely and sincerely, you will see that Nigeria is one of the most blessed countries in the world. And I stand to be corrected on this point. There is no state in this country, even Ashiwaju and his team, including myself, we've discussed it at length. We've burnt the midnight oil several times on this issue, looking at the potentialities of each state of Nigeria. There is no state in this country that does not have the human and material and natural resources to even stand alone.
Does that mean that Ashiwaju is in support of restructuring?
The point is that we've not had that harnessing, efficient and judicious harnessing of those resources. These are the things that Ashiwaju will bring to the table to harness all of those resources and move Nigeria to that land of our dreams.
You said you have burnt the midnight candle on this issue, and I was asking you earlier, does that mean that since he recognizes that, look, every state in Nigeria has, I think you have called it some time ago, comparative advantage over the other. Yes, I think I heard you one time say it that way. Does that mean that he supports restructuring, and when if he becomes president, he will support restructuring?
Oh, my dear, restructuring, even this current government, don't forget, created or instituted a panel. That's the El-Rufai, Governor El-Rufai panel on restructuring. So it is already part of the APC agenda. So if Ashiwaju comes in and starts to implement it, it's not veering off a tangent. It's still within the confines of the APC agenda. Oh, definitely. Oh, yes.
All right, so I know that you said, I think your manifesto, is it 70% or 90% already? I know that the PCC has also not been inaugurated yet. We're waiting for that. But let me ask you, whilst we wait for the manifesto, what is Ashiwaju's plan for Nigeria and Nigerians?
Simple. Ashiwaju's plan, like I've said it earlier, is to move Nigeria security-wise into a more secured environment. Don't also forget that even this current administration, this current president, did say, and I saw him and I read it, that he is going to leave a more secured country than what it is at the moment, or than what it was. So Ashiwaju is also going to build on that. And as we speak, he's been mapping out his mechanisms that he's going to introduce that will quickly ensure the proper comprehensive security of lives and properties of Nigerians. Because without that, really, other things will be difficult to achieve, especially on the economic front. Now, that is that. Secondly, on the economic front, we all know that it's an indisputable fact that Ashiwaju is a master of wealth creation. We have said it several times. I still said it here. If he is recognized as a wealth creator, what is the fundamental economic problem of Nigeria today? It's lack of wealth. You heard that this government did say that even our monocultural economy, which is not even the best, is not also being maximally, beneficial because of the pernicious theft of the oil, the crude oil that is currently going on. The nation is losing substantial amount of money. I mean, you and I saw on television a few days ago how the Tompolo anti-bunkering and all that panel or committee has been unearthing and discovering pipelines, illegal pipelines being used to siphon fuel, crude oil. That is the nation's wealth that is going. Those are leakages. And what is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu noted for? It's for blocking of leakages. So when he comes in, he blocks these leakages. And the financial loopholes scattered all over the country. And then you see the wealth of the country starting to increase. And then when you have the wealth, that is when you can now go into economic developmental programs in concrete terms, like increase in infrastructural development, human capital development like education, like health, social organization, even orientation, agriculture, increase in food production. He has said this several times. You will need to improve our food production locally, because if you cannot feed yourself locally, there's a problem in that society. So he's going to go into agriculture. After security is priority, number one, economy, wealth creation, infrastructural development, and of course, even in the foreign affairs, as esoteric as it sounds, the foreign affairs or foreign image of a country is directly dependent on the local situation of that country. So, if we want to improve our foreign affairs or foreign image, we need to improve our local environment. When our local environment is conducive for business, is conducive to our citizens, is conducive to easy life and properties of the citizens, we don't need to pay PR consultants to whitewash the image of the country. The news, the positive local news will ooze out into the international arena naturally by itself. Just like Ashiwaju's achievements in Lagos, in local Lagos, naturally expanded out. So it will. So these are the things that Ashiwaju will bring, and the most important attribute that you need, because talk is cheap.
So
Every candidate can come before you and tell you the same things that I've said.
Alake.
But you must look at the track records of his performance, which will be the basis upon which to trust.
I just have less than 1 minute left.
Ahead.
And I want to ask you quickly, because I know that your supporters and Nigerians are waiting for when your manifesto will be released, when the PCC will be inaugurated, and when your campaign will kick off. Can you give us any information as to when all of this will happen?
Those things are, those things are really the business of the party. It is not, the party is not working to the dictate of the media. No. The party, and don't forget, let me inform you, and through you, the media generally. This is the longest campaign period we are having in a very long time. The longest in this dispensation. From now till February. It is a marathon. It is not a 100-meter dash. So it's only a dash to those who are politically uninformed or uninitiated or unstrategic to start rushing, and then they lose steam midway. No. To those of us who are experienced in these matters, and Ashiwaju is your master political strategist. Anyway, everybody, even his ardent critics and political enemies, they accord him that respect, that is a master strategist. Right. So the party is taking its time, is looking at everything, crossing the T's and dotting the I's before it comes to the public. Sure it will come to the public at its own determined time. It's not going to work at the dictate or to the dictate of the media in these matters at all.
All right, so I'm sure that as soon as that manifesto is released, we're going to have you again and again because we'll examine line upon line and precept upon precept every detail of that manifesto as it has to do with Nigerians. Thank you so much for your time. Advisor to the APC Presidential Campaign Council, Mr. Dele Alake.
Thank you very much for having me.